Okay, in the last video, we took a look at President Johnson and his presidential plan for Reconstruction. Now we want to take a look at what those radical Republicans wanted. What happens is, in the election of 1864, there were some states that had ended the war in that area, and they had begun to elect new governments. These new governments are then putting forward representatives and congressmen and senators to take their seats in the federal government when the new congressional session starts up in December of 1865. When that session begins in 1865, the Republicans who were already in the House of Representatives didn't want to allow those Democrats from the South to be able to take their seats. They felt that those Southern governments had not fulfilled the plan that the Republican governments that the Republican Congress had put forward, and so therefore they were ineligible to become part of Congress again. There's also a political reason for this. Now that all of those slaves count as one full person, and we've gotten rid of that 3/5 compromise from the original Constitution, the Republicans were afraid that the South may now actually be able to become the majority of the Congress. There were going to be 12 new Southern representatives and 12 new members of the Electoral College, 12 new votes from the Electoral College from the South. And so if the Southerners can gain only a few seats from the North, and if those Southern Democrats can gain just a few allies from northern or border states, then they would be able to control the House of Representatives, and they would be able to control the Electoral College, which means that the White House and the Congress could both be controlled by the Southerners who had already left the Union. And so these Republicans are angry, first of all, at the South, but then they're also looking at this situation politically. They don't want to give up power back to those Southern Confederates as they saw them. And so Congress decides not to allow those Southern Democrats to take their seats. So on December 6th, 1865, President Johnson comes out and says that those Southern states are now fully reconstructed, they have met his criteria, and so therefore they should be allowed back into the Union. And so we have on one side the President with the power of pardoning people and the power to execute the laws against the Congress, which is allowed to make its own rules for who comes to Congress, but also for the laws that govern the nation. And so you have this clash of checks and balances here, and who is going to come out on top. Congress vetoes Johnson's legislation. Congress vetoes Johnson's ability to make these Southern states reconstructed, until they are able to put other safeguards into place. Now, throughout the rest of Andrew Johnson's presidency until 1868, he's able to get very few things done because Congress is more than willing to override his vetoes. And as long as those Southern governments are still controlled by carpetbaggers, those carpetbaggers are not going to allow Southern Democrats to be put into Congress. And so for this time, the entire Congress is controlled by Republicans and is really led by those radical Republicans. So during this time, while those Southern governments those Southern states are controlled by carpetbaggers, the Congress, fearful that the Democrats would come in and take power and eliminate all of the safeguards against the injustice against former slaves, they passed the 14th Amendment, and that's passed in June of 1866. The 14th Amendment outlines different things that should be done in those Southern states. First of all, the 13th Amendment frees the slaves, and so the 14th Amendment gives them citizenship. It said if you do not give them full rights of citizenship, then you will have the numbers of Congress people from your state reduced, and you will have the number of votes that your state receives in the Electoral College reduced. This meant that it was a way for the Republicans to take back power. All they would have to say is that Southern blacks are not being given their rights, and so we can reduce the number of representatives that state is allowed. It also disqualified federal and state offices from being held by Southern Confederates, those who had left the Union, and so that was actually put into the Constitution, and it guaranteed the federal debt, but said that Southern states that had incurred debt during the war had to pay back that debt themselves. And instead of giving the president the power to enforce these rules, like would be set up under a normal system of checks and balances, the 14th Amendment says that Congress is the one that will enforce these rules themselves. And that's because the Republicans wanted the ability to be able to enforce these rules and to keep the Southern Democrats out. Republicans won a 2/3 majority in the House and Senate in 1866 and were able to pass this legislation. And with a 2/3 majority in both houses, there wasn't anything that Johnson could do in order to stop Republican plans from going forward. And so now the Republicans are in complete control of Reconstruction policy with very little that Andrew Johnson can do about it.